Hello there. This is the day the Lord has made, and this is Daily Bible Reading Podcast number 10. Today we read Genesis 19, Job 10, and the second half of Mark 6. May the Lord bless you real good today. Before we start, I'd like to ask if you happen to know an elderly person who can no longer read their Bible, or do you know someone who would enjoy listening to audio scripture but who is not able to use the internet? An easy way to help such people is by sharing MP3 recordings via inexpensive MP3 players or audio CDs. There's more information for you at our website, dailybiblereading.info. Let's turn to Genesis 19. In yesterday's reading, Abram and Sarai received new names, and God confirmed and expanded his covenant with Abram, now Abraham. Circumcision was added as a sign of following the covenant. Angels visited Abraham and Sarah, and Abraham bargained with God about saving the few righteous people in Sodom, among whom I am sure Abraham was thinking of Lot. Genesis 19. When the two angels came to Sodom that evening, Lot was sitting at the city gate. As soon as he saw them, he got up and went to meet them. He bowed down before them and said, "Sirs, I am here to serve you. Please come to my house. You can wash your feet and stay the night. In the morning you can get up early and go on your way." But they answered, "No, we will spend the night here in the city square." He kept on urging them, and finally they went with him to his house. Lot ordered his servants to bake some bread and prepare a fine meal for the guests. When it was ready, they ate it. Before the guests went to bed, the men of Sodom surrounded the house. All the men of the city, both young and old, were there. They called out to Lot and asked, "Where are the men who came to stay with you tonight? Bring them out to us." The men of Sodom wanted to have sex with them. Lot went outside and closed the door behind him. He said to them, "Friends, I beg you, don't do such a wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who are still virgins. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you want with them. But don't do anything to these men. They are guests in my house, and I must protect them." But they said, "Get out of the way, you foreigner! Who are you to tell us what to do? Out of the way, or we'll treat you worse than them." They pushed Lot back and moved up to break down the door, but the 2 men inside reached out, pulled Lot back into the house, and shut the door. Then they struck all the men outside with blindness, so they couldn't find the door. The 2 men said to Lot, "If you have anyone else here, sons, daughters, sons-in-law, or any other relatives living in the city, get them out of here, because we're going to destroy this place. The Lord has heard the terrible accusations against these people, and he has sent us to destroy Sodom." Then Lot went to the men that his daughters were going to marry and said, "Hurry up and get out of here. The Lord is going to destroy this place." But they thought he was joking. At dawn, the angels tried to make Lot hurry. "Quick," they said, "take your wife and your 2 daughters and get out, so that you won't lose your lives when the city is destroyed." Lot hesitated. The Lord, however, had pity on him, so the men took him, his wife, and his 2 daughters by the hand and led them out of the city. Then one of the angels said, "Run for your lives. Don't look back, and don't stop in the valley. Run to the hills, so you won't be killed." But Lot answered, "No, please don't make me do that, sir. You have done me a great favor and saved my life, but the hills are too far away. The disaster will overtake me, and I will die before I get there. Do you see that little town? It's near enough. Let me go over there. You can see it's just a small place, and I will be safe there." He answered, "All right, I agree. I won't destroy that town. Hurry, run, I can't do anything until you get there." Because Lot called it small, the town was named Zoar. The sun was rising when Lot reached Zoar. Suddenly the Lord rained burning sulfur on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and destroyed them and the whole valley, along with all the people there and everything that grew on the land. But Lot's wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham hurried to the place where he had stood in the presence of the Lord. He looked down at Sodom and Gomorrah and the whole valley and saw smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a huge furnace. But when God destroyed the cities in the valley where Lot was living, he kept Abraham in mind and allowed Lot to escape to safety. Because Lot was afraid to stay in Zoar, he and his 2 daughters moved up into the hills and lived in a cave. The elder daughter said to her sister, "Our father is getting old, and there are no men in the whole world to marry us so that we can have children. Come on, let's make our father drunk, so that we can sleep with him and have children by him." That night they gave him wine to drink, and the elder daughter had intercourse with him. But he was so drunk that he didn't know it. The next day the elder daughter said to her sister, "I slept with him last night. Now let's make him drunk again tonight, and you can sleep with him. Then each of us will have a child by our father." So that night they made him drunk, and the younger daughter had intercourse with him. Again he was so drunk that he didn't know it. In this way both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their own father. The elder daughter had a son whom she named Moab. He was the ancestor of the present-day Moabites. The younger daughter also had a son whom she named Ben-Ami. He was the ancestor of the present-day Ammonites. Let's turn to Job 10. Job continues his response to Bildad. At the end of chapter 9, Job showed mankind's need of a mediator. Job said, "If God were human, I could answer him. We could go to court and decide our quarrel. But there is no one to step between us, no one to judge both God and me." Mankind has now received that mediator, that one to stand between us and God, and that person is Jesus. Job chapter 10, Job continues speaking. "I'm tired of living. Listen to my bitter complaint. Don't condemn me, God. Tell me, what is the charge against me? Is it right for you to be so cruel, to despise what you yourself have made, and then to smile on the schemes of wicked people? Do you see things as we do? Is your life as short as ours? Then why do you track down all my sins and hunt down every fault I have? You know that I'm not guilty, and that no one can save me from you. Your hands formed and shaped me, and now those same hands destroy me. Remember that you made me from clay. Are you going to crush me back to dust? You gave my father strength to beget me. You made me grow in my mother's womb. You formed my body with bones and sinews, and covered the bones with muscles and skin. You have given me life and constant love, and your care has kept me alive. But now I know that all this time you were secretly planning to harm me. You were watching me to see if I would sin, so that you could refuse to forgive me. As soon as I sin, I'm in trouble with you. But when I do right, I get no credit. I'm miserable and covered with shame. If I have any success at all, you hunt me down like a lion. To hurt me, you even work miracles. You always have some witness against me. Your anger towards me grows and grows. You always plan some new attack. Why, God, did you let me be born? I should have died before anyone saw me. To go from the womb straight to the grave would have been as good as never existing. Isn't my life almost over? Well, leave me alone. Let me enjoy the time I have left. I'm going soon and will never come back, going to the land that is dark and gloomy, a land of darkness, shadows, and confusion, where the light itself is darkness. Let's turn for the second time to Mark 6. In the first part of chapter 6, Jesus sent out the 12 disciples after giving them authority to cast out evil spirits. He also sent them to teach and to heal. Following that, we learned about the death of John the Baptist. Mark 6, starting at verse 30. The apostles returned and met with Jesus, and told him all that they had done and taught. There were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his disciples didn't even have time to eat, so he said to them, "Let's go off by ourselves to some place where we can be alone and you can rest for a while." So they started out in a boat by themselves for a lonely place. Many people, however, saw them leave and knew at once who they were. So they went from all the towns and ran ahead by land and arrived at the place ahead of Jesus and his disciples. When Jesus got out of the boat, he saw this large crowd, and his heart was filled with pity for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began to teach them many things. When it was getting late, his disciples came to him and said, "It's already very late, and this is a lonely place. Send the people away and let them go to the nearby farms and villages in order to buy themselves something to eat." Jesus answered, "You yourselves give them something to eat." They asked, "Do you want us to go and spend 200 silver coins on bread in order to feed them?" Footnote: 1 silver coin was worth a day's labor. So Jesus asked them, "How much bread have you got? Go and see." When they found out, they told him, 5 loaves and also 2 fish. Jesus then told his disciples to make all the people divide into groups and sit down on the green grass. So the people sat down in rows, in groups of 100 and groups of 50. Then Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, and gave thanks to God. He broke the loaves and gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. Everyone ate and had enough. Then the disciples took up 12 baskets full of what was left of the bread and the fish. The number of men who were fed was 5,000. At once, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida on the other side of the lake, while he sent the crowd away. After saying goodbye to the people, he went away to a hill to pray. When evening came, the boat was in the middle of the lake, while Jesus was alone on the land. He saw that his disciples were straining at the oars, because they were rowing against the wind. So sometime between 3 and 6 o'clock in the morning, he came to them, walking on the water. He was going to pass them by, but they saw him walking on the water. "It's a ghost," they thought, and screamed. They were all terrified when they saw him. Jesus spoke to them at once. "Courage! It is I. Don't be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind died down. The disciples were completely amazed, because they had not understood the real meaning of the feeding of the 5,000. Their minds could not grasp it. They crossed the lake and came to land at Gennesaret, where they tied up the boat. As they left the boat, people recognized Jesus at once. So they ran throughout the whole region, and wherever they heard he was, they brought to him sick people lying on mats. And everywhere Jesus went, to villages, towns, or farms, people would take those who were ill to the marketplaces and beg him to let them at least touch the edge of his cloak. And all who touched it were made well. Let me start us out in prayer today. Lord, my biggest desire is that you would teach us every day through these Bible readings and podcasts. I pray that you would be with my listener who is listening to me right now. Father, we pray that you would reveal secrets to us through the book of Job. Help us to understand our sufferings, even as Job eventually understood his. And Father, help us to understand the things that the disciples didn't get at first. They didn't understand who this Jesus was who could feed 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish, or who could walk on water. Lord, I pray that where the disciples could not understand these things, you would give us spiritual understanding that would touch not only our perception of you, but also how we live our lives. And I pray that even today, our lives would reflect the glory of Christ.